Well, hello everybody. I hope you're all keeping well. I want to talk about something that's very interesting and very telling in many ways. It's sort of like a warning why you should never be an NPC or a normie. And that is what has happened to the vast, once vast, enormous, and complex, literally organized and professional skeptical and debunker industry that once existed on the internet. It's gone. Now, before you say anything, yeah, I know there's debunkers here and there, and there's skeptics groups here and there. But prior to 2020, and specifically about 10, 15 years ago, well, 10 years ago when it began, the whole debunker thing was a literally a growth industry. The internet was filled with sites, forums, discussion groups that basically decided that anyone who didn't believe in the materialistic view of the world was a kook, a grifter, mentally ill, and had to be exposed. And this was a very easy way for someone, for a midwit, to prove that they were smarter than everyone else, that they were highly intelligent by saying, well, you can't prove that. And they don't think like, Dunning-Kruger and, Occam's razor. And they would do all these things, and they would, cite Carl Sagan's thing about, incredible proof and stuff like that. This is what a midwit does to prove that they're more intelligent than they think they are. And literally, there must have been hundreds, if not thousands, of forums and groups, reason this, skeptic that, debunkers this, debunkers that, filled with some of the nastiest individuals who would launch the most personal attacks on anyone who expressed an opinion that was outside the prevailing orthodoxy. I once came across a skeptics group, and the title of it's gone now, of course, was Nutcase, Irish Nutcase Thomas Sheridan. And it was basically, there was only one topic on the thread, and they were making fun of the fact that I had said that Jimmy Savile had modelled his image, possibly, is on Moira Hindley's infamous police photo, arrest photo. And they were going down the list, like really, I mean, literally as if they knew me personally and I'd stolen money from their grandmothers. It was loaded with absolute hatred, towards me. And I'm like reading this saying, Jesus Christ, what's wrong with these people? And then a few years later, Louis Theroux comes out with a documentary where he interviews Jimmy Savile and asks him, "Did you know Moira Hindley?" And Savile went, "I am Moira Hindley. I am the Moira Hindley story." And of course, there was no retraction from these people. There's no update, no correction. It's just like a very medieval, sort of puritanical uh, judge, jury, and executioner type mentality among them. And this is how it was for years. Like anyone who had a channel to do with, anything, ghost hunting or ghost stories or anything, just like absolute and out and out assaults, but never like what you can't really prove this. It was like actual hatred, and there was no such thing as an alternative opinion. There was them and the mentally ill, and they were all spawned from the kind of the Richard Dawkins God delusion type generation. That was another. The God delusion was another Midwit's classic. To be seen holding a copy of that myth, you were somehow highly like reasoned and intelligent. You were just another Midwit trying to prove that they'd never look at anything. They'd never really study anything. They love the sites, scientific thing. Like I fucking love science. Remember that group? That's not even that. It's a pale shadow of that once was. That whole thing, and they're all gone now. All gone. There's almost none of them left. Now, have they come around and seen that the 40 and supernatural and paranormal elements are interesting, so worth studying? Maybe there's something to it. No. Where are they? They're dead. They all started vanishing around 2022 when the transubstantiation of the sacred needlecraft was rolled out. And they started vanishing in all this, the sites went down. They just vanished. They're just gone. They're gone. And the ones that have not actually, been obliterated by their beloved needlecraft, uh, ping pong, are they've had their. We know that it destroys neurology, and it prevents. It locks down cognitive thinking because it passes the blood-brain barrier and creates a kind of a zombified state. So they just don't have the vigor. The ones that are still alive, they're literally just drooling. Basically, just doing. Just they have no. They can't. They don't even have the sort of cognitive faculties to even debate anymore. They just the most. That's why the emoji, laughing emoji, is so powerful. It's so common these days. They cannot put together a cognitive argument to debate with you because they don't like what you're saying. But because the transubstantiation of the sacred needlecraft has passed their blood-brain barrier and reduced their cognitive functioning, all they can manage now is a laughing emoji, where before it would have been huge, pages of like a forum slagging you off or slagging someone off, and they're all gone. They're nearly all gone. Yeah, there's still the odd one out there here and there, but they're all gone. And about 15, 13 years ago, and I think I've republished on my Substack, I wrote an article about the imbalance between the left brain and the right brain is what creates these people. That they're like literally probably brain damaged. And I wrote quite a good article with some science and everything to back it up. And I got they were slagging that off, and like one guy even demanded to know what my background was. It's the same thing as like when the needlecraft came out. You're a virologist. The same thing. The same thing. So it's just that whole thing of like when they were probably this whole thing was probably created and developed years in advance of the release of the bioweapon. So they'd have all these people, and they were like groups like boards.ie. You literally had midwits running around forums hunting people who questioned the lockdowns. Literally, I'm not kidding. It's like literally like a witch hunt, and they would show up. Say you might have a forum about anything art, and someone was saying, I'd love to get the exhibition going again, but this stupid lockdown makes no sense to me. And then this person who'd never posted on that forum before, as if somebody had alerted him or sent him there, would show up and go, conspiracy theory forum, that way. This thing, or writing Jesus wept, as if that's what you might be saying we should all die of COVID because you want to show your paintings. This kind of thing. All gone. They're all gone now. They're all gone. So it's like the way the Maoists and the Bolsheviks operated, and the Khmer Rouge. What they do is they weaponize the midwits and the sort of useful idiots in the run-up to the event. So they become the most fanatical soldiers of the event. And then when the event happens, they're forced against the wall. They're forced to because they've served their purpose and they're no longer needed. And they'll become unstable if they realize they're not getting the special place at the table that they were expecting. Now, up against the wall this time was rolling up the sleeve. But that's what's happened. And even with all the evidence going around now of what's going on with the suddenlies and unexpectedlies, they would still be, if they were still out there, they'd be still fighting that corner. And they're just not there. You don't see them anywhere. Like, for instance, 2 kids died in a school in Doncaster in England on the same day in different classes. Now, even the ones who would say, well, kids unexpectedly died all the time when we were growing up. No, not 2 kids on the same day in 2 different classes in Doncaster. The bass player from Limp Bizkit dropped dead last night, and they were like the Pfizer Chiefs. They were, it's punk rock, man, getting vaccinated, that fucking bullshit, like that milk toast suburban white bread bullshit. White bread, milk toast, suburban punk rock mentality, like the David Grohl type mentality, troubadours of the establishment. And so, you pay, you play. It's as simple as that. So that's what's happened to them. They're all dead. They're all dead, or they've been cognitively rotted by the fMRA passing through their blood-brain barrier, and sort of like destroying their cognitive processing. That's what's going on. But it's remarkable how quickly it took place. It was literally overnight, and it all directly started with the first rollout of the transubstantiation of the sacred needlecraft. So that's just think back. Those of you who've been on the internet a good while and interested in 40 and paranormal offbeat topics, just think back how many YouTube channels, sites. Now, a lot of these people were exposed as weirdos and hypocrites, like the Amazing Atheist guy, but that was not a majority. Forums, message boards. You were almost overwhelmed by them on the internet. All gone now. Not all gone, but they're not. They're just the great industry is not there anymore. Why? Useful idiots forced against the wall. Boom, you're out. And that's where all these professional skeptics have gone. They've gone out the chimneys of the crematoriums to ironically cause more CO2 in the atmosphere. So in the end, they became what they hated the most. Take care.